Standing at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, staring up at those colossal limestone blocks, each weighing more than 2.5 tons, it's impossible not to feel a shiver of awe. How, more than 4,500 years ago, did human hands shape and lift these stones into precise alignment, creating a structure so perfect it would outlast empires? This isn't just a question about one pyramid, it's a mystery that echoes across time, touching every corner of our planet, from the towering temples of Angkor Wat to the precision-cut walls of Machu Picchu. Ancient civilizations achieved what should have been impossible with their limited tools and technology. And yet here their monuments stand, defying explanation, whispering secrets of a forgotten genius. Imagine uncovering the truth behind 35 of these monumental ancient constructions, each one a testament to human ingenuity, each one a puzzle waiting to be solved. These aren't just piles of stone, they're coded messages from the past, left by cultures who dared to reach beyond their grasp. Some were built to honor gods, others to mark the stars, and a few, well, their purpose still eludes us. But one thing ties them all together, the sheer audacity of their creation. How did workers quarry and transport megaliths weighing hundreds of tons without wheels or pulleys? How did architects align structures with celestial events down to the fraction of a degree millennia before modern astronomy? The answers aren't just buried in textbooks, they're etched into the very bones of these wonders, waiting for us to listen. This journey won't just take us across continents, it'll sweep us through time, from the misty jungles of Cambodia to the sun-baked plains of Egypt, from the Andes' dizzying heights to the submerged ruins hidden beneath ocean waves. We'll meet kings who dreamed in stone, engineers who bent physics to their will, and laborers whose names history forgot but whose legacy towers above us all. And by the end, you won't just see these monuments as static relics, you'll feel the pulse of the people who built them, their ambition echoing across centuries. So let's begin where all great stories do, with a question that still haunts us. How did they do it, and what can these silent, towering witnesses teach us about the boundless potential of human imagination? The Great Pyramid of Giza doesn't just defy expectations, it shatters them. Originally soaring to 481 feet, its height alone would dwarf most modern buildings, but it's the precision behind its construction that truly baffles the mind. Every side aligns almost perfectly with true north, a feat so accurate that even today's engineers would struggle to replicate it without satellite guidance. And then there's the sheer volume of material, 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons, stacked with gaps so tight you couldn't slip a credit card between them. How? That's the question that's haunted historians for centuries. One popular theory suggests massive ramps spiraled around the pyramid's exterior, allowing workers to drag blocks upward layer by layer. But here's the catch: such a ramp would have required more material than the pyramid itself, leaving behind no trace in the archaeological record. Others propose an internal spiral ramp hidden within the structure, yet scans reveal no hollow spaces large enough to support this idea. Then there are the more speculative theories. Could the ancients have mastered a form of sound levitation, as some fringe researchers suggest? Or did they possess tools or techniques so advanced, so unlike anything we've discovered, that their secrets were lost to time? What's undeniable is the pyramid's mathematical brilliance. The ratio of its perimeter to its height mirrors the exact value of pi, and its dimensions encode the Earth's circumference with eerie accuracy. Coincidence? Unlikely. This wasn't just a tomb, it was a monument engineered with knowledge that seems to transcend its era. Even the mortar binding the stones, analyzed by modern scientists, defies replication. Whatever methods they used, one thing is clear: the builders of the Great Pyramid operated on a level of sophistication that challenges our understanding of history itself. Among the most fascinating and hotly debated theories about the pyramid's construction is the water shaft hypothesis. Picture this, a network of carefully engineered canals and reservoirs channeling the Nile's floodwaters to the construction site. Advocates argue that workers floated massive stone blocks on barges during the annual floods, then used water-filled channels around the pyramid's base to lift them into place with buoyancy. It's an elegant solution, especially when you consider how effortlessly water can counterbalance weight. But skeptics point to the lack of direct evidence. No traces of these canals have been found in the surrounding desert, and the logistics of maintaining such a system under the scorching Egyptian sun would have been daunting. Still, the idea lingers, tantalizing in its simplicity. What if the ancients didn't just move mountains, they made rivers work for them? Then there's the concrete casting theory, which flips traditional assumptions on their head. Instead of quarrying and hauling every block, this idea suggests builders mixed a form of ancient geopolymer, a limestone-based concrete, pouring it into molds on site. Proponents highlight the unusual chemical composition of some pyramid stones, which differ subtly from natural limestone. Even more compelling, the way certain blocks appear to have air bubbles and layered textures, just like man-made materials. But detractors fire back with a simple objection. If the Egyptians had concrete, why hasn't a single mold or mixing tool ever been discovered? The debate rages on, with each side armed with fragments of evidence but no smoking gun. Perhaps the most haunting theory ties the pyramids not to Earth, but to the stars, specifically Orion's belt. The alignment of the three main pyramids at Giza mirrors the three stars of Orion's belt with uncanny precision, a pattern first noted in the 1980s. This celestial mirroring isn't just artistic. Some argue it's a deliberate map, encoding the Egyptians' belief that the pharaoh's soul would ascend to join the gods in the sky. But here's where it gets eerie. When you account for the gradual shift of stars over millennia due to Earth's wobble, the alignment matches the night sky not during Khufu's reign, but nearly 12,000 years earlier. Could the pyramids be far older than we think, or is this just a case of cosmic coincidence? The stars, like the stones, keep their secrets close. What ties these theories together is the sheer audacity of the questions they raise. Whether through water, chemistry, or celestial inspiration, the pyramid builders operated on a scale that still defies easy explanation. Each hypothesis offers a glimpse into a world where engineering and mythology intertwined, where the impossible wasn't just imagined but built. And that's the real mystery, not just how they did it, but why they reached so far beyond the limits of their time. Was it devotion, ambition, or something we haven't even considered? The pyramids don't just challenge our understanding of history, they challenge us to rethink what humanity is truly capable of. Shift your gaze now from the sun-scorched sands of Egypt to the rolling green hills of England, where another ancient marvel has stood sentinel for millennia: Stonehenge. Unlike the pyramid's sharp geometry, this circle of towering stones feels almost alive, as if frozen mid-dance. But don't let its rustic appearance fool you. The logistics behind Stonehenge's creation are just as mind-bending as anything in Giza. Take the blue stones, for instance, massive slabs weighing up to 25 tons each, dragged from quarries in Wales over 150 miles away. That's like hauling 6 pickup trucks across mountains, rivers, and forests using nothing but ropes, sledges, and sheer human determination. How did Neolithic people manage it? Some argue they transported the stones on wooden rollers, while others speculate they waited for winter, sliding them atop frozen waterways. Either way, the effort would have required an army of workers and a society organized enough to feed and mobilize them for generations. Then there's the precision. Forget random placement. Stonehenge's stones align with the summer and winter solstices so perfectly that sunlight pierces the heart of the circle like a laser on the longest and shortest days of the year. This wasn't accidental. Whoever designed Stonehenge possessed an intimate understanding of the solar cycle, mapping it onto the landscape with stone as their medium. Was it a colossal calendar tracking the seasons for farmers, a temple where priests predicted celestial events to awe their followers, or perhaps something more mystical, a place where the veil between worlds grew thin and rituals under the solstice sun held cosmic significance? The purpose of Stonehenge sparks fiercer debates than almost any other ancient site. For centuries, folklore painted it as a healing ground, its blue stones believed to carry curative powers. Modern excavations unearthed bones showing signs of injury and illness, hinting that pilgrims might have journeyed here seeking miracles. But then there's the acoustic evidence. Certain spots within the circle create eerie echoes and reverberations, suggesting sound may have played a role in ceremonies. And let's not forget the surrounding landscape, dotted with burial mounds and processional avenues, as if Stonehenge were the epicenter of a vast ritual theater. What's most striking, though, is how Stonehenge reflects a shift in how we view ancient people. No longer just primitive farmers, its builders emerge as astronomers, engineers, and spiritual visionaries. They moved mountains literally to carve their beliefs into the earth, and like the pyramids, Stonehenge whispers a challenge across the ages. If they could achieve this with antler picks and rawhide ropes, what does that say about the limits of human ingenuity? The stones won't give up their secrets easily, but every chipped tool, every aligned sunrise, every new theory brings us closer to hearing the story they've waited 5,000 years to tell. Rome's Colosseum wasn't just an amphitheater, it was a revolution in stone. While the pyramids and Stonehenge awe us with their sheer scale or celestial precision, this 2,000-year-old marvel redefined what architecture could do. Picture 50,000 roaring spectators, their voices bouncing perfectly off curved walls, not a single dead spot in the sound. But the real magic wasn't just above ground, it lurked beneath, in a labyrinth of tunnels and elevators so advanced, it would take centuries for technology to catch up. The secret: concrete, not the crude mortar of earlier eras, but a proprietary Roman blend of volcanic ash, lime, and rubble that hardened over time into something nearly indestructible. This wasn't just strong, it was flexible, allowing arches and vaults to bear unimaginable weight without collapsing, and the Colosseum's elliptical shape. Pure genius. Unlike a circle which concentrates noise, the oval distributed sound evenly, so even the cheapest seats heard every clash of swords and roar of beasts. But the true showstopper was the hypogeum, the underground maze where gladiators and wild animals waited in darkness. Trapdoors and pulley-operated elevators hoisted lions, bears, and even scenery into the arena floor in seconds, creating jaw-dropping surprises for the crowd. Imagine the engineering: slaves manhandling wooden platforms and counterweights, hidden beneath sand so the audience never saw the machinery. This wasn't just spectacle, it was theatrical warfare, choreographed down to the second. What's haunting is how much we've lost. The Colosseum once had a retractable awning, the velarium, shielding spectators from sun, a system so complex, historians still debate how sailors maneuvered its ropes. And those outer walls, stripped of their marble over centuries, they originally gleamed with inscriptions and statues, a testament to Rome's might. Yet even in ruin, the Colosseum whispers its lessons, that innovation thrives under constraint, that crowds crave immersion, and that the line between architect and showman is thinner than we think. Here, concrete wasn't just material, it was the DNA of an empire's ambition. The pyramids reached for the heavens, Stonehenge charted the stars, but the Colosseum, it pinned humanity itself under a microscope, revealing both our brutality and our brilliance. And in its shadow, we're left wondering, did we invent modern stadiums or simply rediscover what Rome had already perfected? High in the Andes, perched like a castle in the clouds, Machu Picchu defies gravity and logic. Unlike the pyramid's brutal weight or the Colosseum's engineered spectacle, this 15th century Inca citadel whispers its genius through subtlety. Start with the stones, no mortar binds them, yet they fit together so tightly that not even a blade of grass can wedge between. earthquakes that topple modern buildings. These walls simply sway and settle back into place thanks to tapered blocks that lock like puzzle pieces. It's as if the Incas didn't just build a city, they taught stone to dance. Then there's the water. 16 fountains cascade through the site, fed by a network of channels so precise they maintain perfect water pressure across steep slopes. Engineers still marvel at how the Incas carved stone gutters to direct rainfall away from terraces, preventing erosion that would have doomed lesser structures. This wasn't just plumbing, it was hydraulics poetry, turning a mountaintop into a self-sustaining oasis. Yet the real shock, they did it all without the wheel, metal tools, or written language, just obsidian hammers, rope, and an intimate knowledge of their environment. Which makes the abandonment even more haunting. When Spanish conquistadors arrived, Machu Picchu was already empty, its stairways to nowhere left unused. No signs of battle, no evidence of disease, just silence. Some theorize it was a royal retreat discarded when the Inca Empire fell. Others believe it served as a celestial observatory, its alignment with solstices too deliberate to ignore. But perhaps the most poignant idea, that it was always meant to be temporary, a sacred space where humanity touched the divine before returning to the world below. What lingers isn't just the mystery of why they left, but how they thrived here at all. At 8,000 feet, thin air starves muscles and clouds obscure the sun. Yet the Incas coaxed crops from sheer cliffs, bending agriculture to their will with microclimates engineered into terraces. They didn't fight the mountain, they became part of it. And that's Machu Picchu's real lesson, not just how to build, but how to listen. To the rock that taught them stability, to the water that shaped their streets, to the sky that dictated their rituals. While other monuments shout their greatness, this lost city hums, a reminder that sometimes the most enduring wonders are those that blend seamlessly into the world around them. Stretching like a stone serpent across China's rugged landscapes, the Great Wall is a monument not just to defense, but to sheer human stubbornness. Think about the numbers for a moment: 13,000 miles of wall across mountains, deserts, and grasslands, built over 2,000 years by dynasties from the Qin to the Ming. But here's what's even wilder: some sections owe their longevity to soup. That's right, workers mixed sticky rice flour with slaked lime to create mortar so strong, modern scientists found it contains organic compounds that resist earthquakes and erosion. This wasn't just glue, it was edible engineering. The wall's spine isn't uniform. Watchtowers rise like vertebrae every few hundred yards, each one a nerve center in a sprawling communication network. By day, guards signaled with flags or mirrors. By night, smoke from burning wolf dung, chosen for its thick, dark plumes, relayed invasions in minutes across hundreds of miles. A single tower spotting Mongols could alert the entire frontier faster than a galloping horse. And those towers, they weren't just signal stations. Some stored grain and weapons, while others housed garrisons so isolated they became self-sufficient villages suspended in stone. Now, let's unravel a myth that's clung to the wall like ivy. Astronauts can't actually see it from space with the naked eye. At its widest, the wall spans about 30 feet, roughly the length of 2 cars parked end to end. From low Earth orbit, that's like trying to spot a single human hair from 2 miles away. The confusion likely started because the wall is visible in satellite imagery, but only with zoom lenses and perfect lighting. It's a reminder that even the mightiest human achievements are humbled by the scale of the planet itself. But scale wasn't the point. The wall wasn't designed to be seen from the heavens, it was meant to be felt on the ground. When Genghis Khan's cavalry charged, those stones absorbed their thunder. When merchants trekked the Silk Road, the wall's shadow meant safety. And today, as erosion and tourism wear at its edges, the wall's true legacy isn't in its visibility, but in its endurance. It whispers that borders are human inventions, but perseverance, that's universal. Hidden deep within Jordan's sandstone canyons, the facade of Al-Kosneh seems to erupt from the cliffside like a mirage. Carved directly into the rose-red rock at a staggering 130 feet tall, this masterpiece of Nabatean engineering wasn't built, it was revealed. Imagine artisans dangling from ropes, chiseling downward from the top of the cliff face, removing stone grain by grain to expose the intricate columns, statues, and pediments beneath. No scaffolding, no margin for error, just a vision etched into the mountain itself. But the true marvel isn't just the facade's grandeur, it's the precision. Every curl of an acanthus leaf, every fold in the carved robes of mythological figures, was executed with such skill that modern laser scans revealed deviations of less than a millimeter across vast surfaces. The Nabateans didn't just carve beauty from chaos, they tamed the desert. Petra thrives in one of the most arid regions on Earth, yet the city boasted lush gardens and flowing fountains. Their secret, a hydraulic empire hidden beneath the sand. Channels carved into cliffs diverted seasonal floods into cisterns, while ceramic pipes snaking beneath streets delivered water with minimal evaporation. Even more ingenious, they lined reservoirs with waterproof cement and engineered terraces to slow erosion, turning flash floods into a life source. This wasn't just survival, it was desert alchemy, transforming scarcity into abundance. Then there's the mystery of the urn crowning Al-Kosneh's upper tier. Local Bedouin lore claims it once held a pharaoh's treasure, sparking centuries of rifle shots aimed at cracking it open, hence the pockmarked surface. But archaeologists whisper another possibility. The urn might symbolize the Nabatean god Dashara, representing not gold but spiritual wealth. Recent ground-penetrating radar hints at chambers hidden behind the facade, yet unexcavated. Could they hold scrolls, artifacts, or simply the echoes of rituals lost to time? What lingers most isn't just the how, but the why. Al-Kosneh's alignment captures the sunrise on the winter solstice, illuminating the inner sanctum like a celestial spotlight. Was it a temple, a royal tomb, or a stage for sacred theater? The stones refuse to say, but in their silence they challenge us to reconsider what we label primitive. These weren't just stonecutters, they were artists who painted with chisels, engineers who wrangled water from dust, and astronomers who mapped the heavens onto rock. Petra doesn't just stand as a monument, it's a mirror reflecting the boundless creativity of a people who saw a lifeless canyon and dreamed it into wonder. Rising from the Valley of Mexico like a mountain forged by gods, the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan doesn't just dominate the landscape, it commands it. 2,000 years ago, this colossal structure, standing 216 feet tall with a base rivaling the Great Pyramid of Giza, was more than a monument, it was a cosmic antenna. Every detail, from its staggering size to its precise orientation, whispers of a civilization deeply attuned to the heavens. The pyramid's western face aligns perfectly with the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster, an event marking the zenith of their agricultural calendar. But this wasn't just stargazing, it was celestial engineering. The Pleiades, known to the Teotihuacanos as the hearth of creation, were believed to govern the cycles of life and rain. Time the climb to the summit at dusk during the cluster's annual descent, and you'd witness the stars appear to sink directly into the pyramid's heart, as if feeding it with cosmic energy. Beneath this stone giant lies an even greater enigma, a labyrinth of caves, their walls shimmering with pyrite dust to mimic the night sky, and at their center, a pool of liquid mercury. Discovered in recent excavations, this toxic mirror wasn't just decorative, it was a sacred portal. Ancient Mesoamerican cultures viewed mercury as divine blood, a substance capable of bridging the underworld and the heavens. Picture priests navigating these torchlit tunnels, their reflections warping in the quicksilver's surface, performing rituals where earth, sky, and afterlife intertwined. The cave itself was considered the womb of creation, the place where the gods birthed the sun. By building the pyramid atop it, the Teotihuacanos didn't just honor their gods, they anchored the universe's rebirth to this very spot. Then there's the construction itself, a feat of manpower and mathematics. Over 3 million tons of volcanic stone were hauled without beasts of burden or wheels, each layer compacted with gravel and clay to withstand earthquakes. But the real genius lies in the pyramid's proportions. Its base perimeter divided by its height equals 4 pi, the same mathematical constant encoded in Egypt's pyramids. Coincidence or evidence of a shared, lost knowledge even more puzzling? Teotihuacan was a metropolis of 100,000 people, yet no one knows who ruled it. Unlike the Maya or Aztecs, they left no royal tombs, no boastful inscriptions, just this silent, star-chasing monument. Why pour such resources into a pyramid without glorifying a king? Perhaps because the Pyramid of the Sun wasn't about mortal power. It was a machine designed to harness the rhythms of the cosmos. Every solstice, Pleiades alignment, and Mercury-filled chamber served a singular purpose: to maintain the fragile balance between worlds. While other monuments celebrated human achievement, this one bowed to forces far greater. And in its shadow, we're left to wonder, were the builders architects, priests, or something in between? The stones offer no answers. Only the stars, reflected in ancient Mercury, still hold the secret. Perched atop Athens' Acropolis, the Parthenon seems to defy both gravity and human perception at first glance. Those towering marble columns, they're not perfectly straight. Each one leans slightly inward, a deliberate trick of the eye. Stand at the base and look up, and the entire structure appears flawlessly upright, as if the gods themselves had aligned it. This wasn't accidental. The ancient Greeks understood something modern architects still study. Perfect geometry looks imperfect to the human eye. To compensate, they curved the Parthenon's entire foundation upward in the middle, and every column swells gently near its center. The result, a building that feels alive, its lines breathing and shifting with the sunlight. Then there's the math. The Parthenon's proportions obey the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship so precise it shows up in everything from seashells to galaxies. The width to height, the spacing between columns, even the decorative carvings, all adhere to this invisible formula. But here's the twist: the Greeks didn't just apply the ratio rigidly. They tweaked it subtly, adjusting ratios ever so slightly to account for the viewer's perspective from below. Imagine calculating angles and dimensions not for how they were, but for how they'd appear to someone standing hundreds of feet away. That's not just engineering, it's visual poetry. And then there are the roof tiles, carved from Pentelic marble. They were sliced as thin as parchment, some barely half an inch thick, yet could withstand storms, earthquakes, and millennia of wars. How? The secret lay in the marble's crystalline structure, which the Greeks exploited like master stone weavers. Each tile was shaped to interlock with its neighbors, distributing weight so evenly that the whole roof functioned like a single, flexible shell. Modern engineers have tried to replicate the technique and failed. The precise balance of thickness, curvature, and overlap remains a mystery. But perhaps the Parthenon's greatest illusion isn't in its stones or slopes, it's in how it changes. The marble was deliberately chosen for its refractive quality, turning golden at dawn, blinding white at noon, and honeyed at dusk. In moonlight, the entire structure glows like a lantern. This wasn't just a temple to Athena, it was a clock, a calendar, and a canvas, all carved from the same unyielding stone. The Greeks didn't just build for durability, they built for emotion, crafting a monument that would play tricks on the eyes and stir the soul for centuries. And in that, they succeeded beyond even their own wildest dreams. Rising from the Cambodian jungle like a mirage of stone, Angkor Wat doesn't just occupy space, it defines it. Built in the early 12th century, this temple complex required 5 million tons of sandstone, each block quarried from a mountain over 30 miles away. But here's the twist: the Khmer engineers didn't haul them overland. Instead, they carved a sprawling canal network, floating these colossal stones on bamboo rafts during monsoon floods. Picture it a watery highway with thousands of workers guiding slabs heavier than elephants down currents that turn the landscape into a temporary Venice. This wasn't just logistics, it was liquid engineering, bending nature's rhythms to human will. And then there's the artistry. Angkor Wat's walls are a canvas in stone, with bas-reliefs covering over 1,200 square meters, enough to blanket 2 basketball courts. These aren't mere decorations, they're a frozen epic. One panel depicts the churning of the ocean of milk, a Hindu creation myth where gods and demons tug on a cosmic serpent to summon the nectar of immortality. The detail is staggering. Every scale on the serpent's coils, every ripple in the celestial ocean, even the expressions of anguish and triumph on the deities' faces. But the real marvel, these carvings were executed after the stones were set, meaning artisans dangled from scaffolding, chiseling masterpieces into vertical surfaces without a single misstep. Now step back and behold the bigger picture literally. Angkor Wat's layout is a mirror of the Hindu cosmos. The central towers represent Mount Meru, the axis of the universe, while concentric galleries mimic the mountain's spiritual rings. Even the moat isn't just for defense, it's a recreation of the primordial sea encircling creation itself. But the genius lies in the alignment. During the spring equinox, the sun rises directly over the central tower, casting a shadow that perfectly frames the temple's entrance. Was this celestial choreography intentional? Almost certainly. The Khmer didn't just build a temple, they encoded their cosmology into every brick, every corridor, every shadow. Yet for all its grandeur, Angkor Wat holds quieter mysteries. Recent LiDAR scans reveal an underground network of tunnels, possibly used for rituals or water management. And then there's the enigma of its abandonment. By the 15th century, the temple was quietly reclaimed by the jungle, its purpose forgotten until European explorers stumbled upon it centuries later. Why leave such a masterpiece? Some point to shifting political power, others to environmental collapse as canals silted up. But perhaps the answer lies in the temple's own design, a monument not just to gods but to impermanence itself. The stones whisper a paradox that the greatest creations often outlast the civilizations that built them, becoming both memorials and riddles for the ages. Angkor Wat challenges us to rethink what architecture can mean. It's not just walls and walkways, it's a dialogue between earth and sky, between mortal hands and divine vision. The Khmers didn't carve stone, they carved belief into existence. And today, as dawn light spills over its towers, the temple still performs its oldest miracle, turning rock into reverence. Isolated in the vast Pacific Ocean, Easter Island's silent stone sentinels, the Moai, guard a mystery as deep as the ocean surrounding them. Each of the 887 statues, some towering over 30 feet tall and weighing up to 80 tons, was carved from volcanic tuff at the Rano-Raraku quarry. But here's the puzzle. How did a society with no wheels, no draft animals, and no metal tools transport these colossal figures up to 11 miles across rugged terrain? For decades, the dominant theory involved wooden sledges and log rollers, but recent experiments revealed a far more ingenious method. When researchers tried walking a replica Moai by rocking it side to side with ropes, the statue moved forward with surprising ease, almost as if it were alive. This vertical transport technique, possibly guided by chants or rhythmic pulls, would explain the island's oral traditions of the statues walking to their platforms. Yet even this explanation raises new questions. How did they navigate steep slopes or prevent the statues from toppling? But the Moai's secrets don't end with their journey. For centuries, Western explorers assumed the statues were just heads, until excavations revealed something astonishing. Most Moai have full bodies, buried up to their shoulders in sediment. These torsos, some over 20 feet long, are adorned with intricate carvings, crescent symbols representing Polynesian canoes, fishhooks symbolizing prosperity, and even etched belt designs hinting at ceremonial garb. The buried bodies suggest a deliberate act, perhaps to stabilize the statues during earthquakes or to ritually plant them like seeds of ancestral power. And then there's the mystery of the red stone hats or pukao that top some moai. Weighing up to 12 tons, these cylindrical crowns were rolled uphill from a separate quarry, possibly using a technique involving levering and pivoting. The precision of their placement, balanced perfectly atop the statues without mortar, speaks to an almost playful mastery of physics. Perhaps the most tantalizing enigma lies not in stone but in script. The Rongorongo tablets, covered in glyphs resembling plants, animals, and geometric shapes, remain the only known written language in Polynesia before European contact. But here's the catch: no one alive today can read them. Was it a sacred record of genealogies, a celestial calendar, or even instructions for moai transportation? The glyphs resist all decipherment attempts, partly because the island's oral traditions were shattered by slavery and disease in the 19th century. Some scholars believe the key lies in the glyphs' rhythmic patterns, suggesting they might encode chants or songs. Others note eerie similarities to petroglyphs found near moai sites, hinting at a visual language meant to be read alongside the statues themselves. What makes Easter Island's story so haunting isn't just the how, but the why. These weren't idle carvings, they were conduits of mana or spiritual power, connecting the living to their deified ancestors. Each moai's back faces the sea, its gaze turned inward toward the island's villages as if to watch over the people. Yet this obsession with monument building may have contributed to the island's ecological collapse, as deforestation from log rolling and agriculture triggered soil erosion and famine. The moai then stand as both triumph and warning, testaments to human creativity but also to its unintended consequences. Their silent lips hold a question we're still struggling to answer. How far would you go to honor the past, even at the cost of the future? At the heart of the Yucatan jungle, El Castillo looms like a stone calendar turned on its edge. This pyramid isn't just a temple, it's a cosmic timepiece with 4 staircases of 91 steps each, plus the single platform at the summit, totaling 365. But the Maya didn't just count days, they wove them into architecture. Each step represents a sunrise, each terrace a season, and the entire structure pulses with celestial precision. Climb to the top during the spring or autumn equinox, and you'll witness a spectacle that blurs the line between architecture and magic. As the sun dips toward the horizon, shadows ripple down the northern staircase, forming the undulating body of a serpent that slithers to join its stone head at the base. This isn't an accident, it's astronomy carved into limestone, a fleeting moment when the building itself seems to awaken. Beneath this illusion lies an even darker wonder, the pyramid's hidden layers. Like a nesting doll of history, El Castillo conceals an older, smaller pyramid within its core. When archaeologists tunneled inside, they uncovered a blood-red jaguar throne, its eyes gleaming with jade, and a chilling statue known as the Chakmul, a reclining figure holding a bowl thought to receive sacrificial offerings. But the real horror lies deeper still. Beneath the pyramid's foundation stretches a vast sinkhole or cenote where the Maya cast treasures and people into the sacred waters. Recent sonar scans reveal a trove of golden ornaments, jade masks, and the bones of at least 200 individuals, many children. These weren't random victims. Isotopic analysis shows some traveled hundreds of miles before their deaths, suggesting they were chosen as royal offerings to the rain god Chak. Yet El Castillo's brilliance isn't just in its sacrifices or shadows, it's in its acoustics. Clap your hands at the base, and the echo doesn't just bounce back. It transforms into the chirping cry of the Quetzal bird, a sacred creature linked to the heavens. Scientists believe the staircase's precise angles and treads create this auditory illusion, turning sound into symbolism. Even the pyramid's alignment holds secrets. Its corners are set to mark the rising and setting of Venus, a planet the Maya associated with war and resurrection. During rare Venus transits, when the planet crosses the sun's face, the entire plaza becomes an observatory, with shadows and light painting patterns still being decoded today. What makes El Castillo unforgettable isn't just its scale or its savagery, but its synthesis of both. Here, a step isn't just a step, it's a sunrise. A shadow isn't just a shadow, it's a god. And a pyramid isn't just a pyramid, it's a bridge between earth and sky where mathematics meets mysticism. The Maya didn't build to impress, they built to converse, using stone as their language and the cosmos as their pen. And though their civilization faded, their message endures. Time isn't just measured, it's worshipped. Stepping into Rome's Pantheon feels like walking into the mind of a mathematician who dreamed in concrete. 2,000 years after its construction, its dome remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome on Earth, a record that defies not just time, but physics itself. Picture this, a span of 142 feet, soaring above you with no steel beams, no modern supports, just a perfect hemisphere of Roman ingenuity. The secret, a recipe as precise as it was revolutionary. Builders mixed volcanic ash with limestone to create a lightweight aggregate, then graduated the dome's thickness 21 feet at the base, tapering to just 4 feet near the oculus. This wasn't just clever engineering, it was a stroke of architectural alchemy, turning heavy stone into something almost buoyant. Then there's the oculus, the 9-foot-wide eye at the dome's crown. Far more than a window, it's a celestial clock. Sunlight pours through it like liquid gold, carving a moving beam across the marble floors that marks the hours with silent precision. On April 21st, Rome's founding day, the beam aligns perfectly with the doorway, flooding the entrance in light as if welcoming the city's ancestors. And when rain falls, the concave floor, dotted with barely visible drainage holes, channels the water away before visitors even notice. The Pantheon doesn't just interact with nature, it dances with it, turning weather and light into collaborators in its design. But the real magic lies in the dome's hidden skeleton. Instead of uniform concrete, Roman engineers embedded hollow clay jars within the upper layers, like bubble wrap in a shipping package, to reduce weight without sacrificing strength. Even more brilliant, the coffered ceiling's recessed squares aren't just decorative. They act as stress-relieving pockets, distributing the dome's colossal load so efficiently that earthquakes barely tremble its foundations. Modern simulations reveal the Pantheon's weight presses downward in a near-perfect equilibrium, as if the laws of physics themselves bow to Roman mastery. What's haunting is how much we've forgotten. The exact pouring techniques, the drying times, even the curing process details that could revolutionize modern construction remain locked in the past. The Pantheon stands as both a triumph and a taunt, proof that ancient builders achieved with intuition what today's supercomputers still struggle to model. It whispers a challenge across the centuries that true innovation isn't just about materials but imagination. The courage to turn a hole in the roof into a sundial or a dome into the sky itself. Buried in the earth for over 2,000 years, the Terracotta Army isn't just a collection of statues, it's an entire underground empire frozen in time. Discovered by farmers digging a well in 1974, this sprawling necropolis guards the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, with a force of over 8,000 life-sized soldiers, each one as unique as a living person. No two faces are alike, every arched eyebrow, every folded crease of armor, even the swirls of fingerprints left by the artisans who shaped them. These weren't mass-produced, they were hand-sculpted portraits, an eternal army molded from clay but pulsing with individuality. And they weren't just for show. Originally armed with real bronze weapons, swords still sharp enough to draw blood, crossbows tensioned to fire, these warriors were meant to fight for their emperor in the afterlife. But the soldiers are just the beginning. Ancient texts describe Qin's tomb as a microcosm of his kingdom, complete with palaces, towers, and rivers of flowing mercury symbolizing the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. When archaeologists tested soil samples, they found mercury concentrations nearly 100 times higher than normal evidence that might confirm the legends. Imagine a subterranean world where ceilings glittered with pearls as stars, where automatons stood guard to thwart intruders, where the emperor's body lay encased in a bronze sarcophagus floating on a sea of liquid metal. It's a vision so extravagant it borders on mythology. Yet modern scans reveal an underground complex larger than Manhattan's Central Park, its outermost walls stretching over 6 miles. The real shock: less than 1% of the site has been excavated. Why leave such wonders buried? The answer lies in both reverence and risk. Ancient accounts warn of deadly booby traps, crossbows rigged to fire at grave robbers, rivers of mercury vaporizing the unwary. But there's a modern fear too: exposure. When the first terracotta warriors were unearthed, their vivid paint, lavender, crimson, emerald, flaked off within minutes of contacting air. Until technology can preserve these colors, much of Kin's necropolis remains sealed, a time capsule waiting for science to catch up to history. What makes the terracotta army unforgettable isn't just its scale, but its intimacy. These statues weren't anonymous, they were modeled after real soldiers, their faces immortalizing the men who united China. And that's the paradox: an emperor obsessed with conquering death left behind a monument celebrating life in all its messy, individual glory. The clay warriors stand silent, but their message echoes across millennia. Even the mightiest ruler depends on the humanity of those who serve. Hidden in the dense jungles of Java, Borobudur rises like a stone lotus, its 9 stacked terraces forming the world's largest Buddhist mandala. Built in the 9th century with over 1,600,000 interlocking volcanic stones, this pyramid-like monument defies logic. No mortar binds its blocks, yet it's withstood earthquakes and volcanic ash for 1,200 years. The secret lies in its ingenious construction. Each stone was carved with precision grooves and knobs, fitting together like a 3-dimensional puzzle. But Borobudur isn't just an architectural marvel, it's a spiritual roadmap. Climbing its levels isn't just a physical journey, it's a pilgrimage through Buddhist cosmology, from the earthly realm of desire at the base to the realm of pure enlightenment at the summit. The walls tell stories in stone. 2,672 intricately carved relief panels stretch over 3 miles if laid end to end, depicting everything from royal processions to scenes of daily life in ancient Java. Yet these aren't mere decorations, they're visual scriptures illustrating the law of karma and the path to nirvana. One panel shows a greedy man reborn as a hungry ghost, while another celebrates the moment Prince Siddhartha becomes the Buddha. The carvings are so precise that shadows cast at dawn during the equinoxes bring certain scenes to life, as if the stones themselves are breathing with sacred energy. Then there are the Buddhas, 504 of them, each seated serenely in bell-shaped stupas or carved into niches. At first glance they appear identical, but look closer. The hand gestures or mudras change with each level, earth touching on the lower terraces, meditation at the middle, and the fear-dispelling gesture near the top. This isn't random, it's a deliberate sequence mirroring spiritual progression. The crowning glory, the central stupa at the very peak, once housing an unfinished Buddha statue, possibly left incomplete to symbolize the ineffable nature of enlightenment. But Borobudur's true genius might be written in the stars. The monument aligns precisely with Mount Merapi to the east and Mount Summing to the west, forming a sacred triad. Certain staircases point toward constellations visible during key Buddhist festivals, while the entire structure's geometry reflects ancient Javanese units of measurement tied to astronomical cycles. Some scholars believe the 3 circular upper terraces represent the Buddhist concept of the 3 worlds, while the square lower levels mirror the 4 cardinal directions, a cosmic diagram frozen in stone. What's most haunting isn't just how Borobudur was built, but why it was abandoned. By the 15th century, volcanic eruptions and the spread of Islam in Java left the monument buried under layers of ash and jungle, forgotten until British surveyors stumbled upon it in 1814. Yet even hidden, its power endured. Locals whispered of the mountain of statues, avoiding it for fear of ancient curses. Today, as dawn mist swirls around its spires, Borobudur still feels alive, not just as a relic, but as a testament to humanity's timeless hunger to touch the infinite. The stones whisper that enlightenment isn't a destination, but a climb, one interlocking step at a time. Rising from Iraq's sun-baked plains like a stairway to heaven, the ziggurat of Ur has weathered 41 centuries of scorching heat, shifting rivers, and the rise and fall of empires. Unlike Egypt's stone pyramids or Rome's concrete marvels, this colossal structure was built from something seemingly fragile, mud bricks. Yet here's the twist, those humble bricks hold a secret recipe. Workers mixed river clay with bitumen and crushed reeds, creating a material that hardened like concrete under the relentless Mesopotamian sun, the outer layer. Bricks fired in kilns and sealed with waterproof tar, turning the entire ziggurat into a fortress against both time and floods. This wasn't just construction, it was alchemy, transforming Earth into eternity. Climbing its towering tiers wasn't for mortals. The ziggurat's 3 massive terraces, once painted blazing white with bitumen mortar, served as a cosmic antenna linking Earth to the heavens. At its summit stood the Temple of Nana, the moon god, where priests tracked lunar cycles that dictated the region's agricultural calendar. Every level held symbolic meaning: the base for the underworld, the middle for earthly existence, and the summit for the divine. During full moons, the temple's silver decorations would catch the light, making the entire structure glow like a second moon resting on the horizon. Farmers miles away could see it shimmering, a beacon of celestial order in a land governed by floods and droughts. Then came Leonard Woolley's 1920s excavations, which read like an Indiana Jones script. Digging through layers of wind-blown sand, his team uncovered not just the ziggurat's grandeur, but its dark secrets. Beneath the temple's corners lay foundation deposits: golden nails, lapis lazuli amulets, and the skeletons of sacrificial rams wrapped in woven mats. Most chilling, the discovery of the royal graves, where elite attendants drank poison to accompany their rulers into the afterlife, their bodies arranged in precise geometric patterns. Woolley's most startling revelation came when he found evidence of a biblical scale flood, a 10-foot layer of silt matching the epic of Gilgamesh's deluge story. Suddenly, myth and archaeology intertwined, suggesting the ziggurat's builders had literally risen from the waters to reclaim their world. What makes Ur's ziggurat unforgettable isn't just its endurance, but its symbolism. While Egyptian pyramids pointed to the stars, this was a monument rooted in earthly cycles, its stairways aligned with the moon's phases, its rituals tied to barley harvests and river floods. Even in ruin, it whispers of a civilization that saw divinity not in distant heavens, but in the rhythms of soil and sky. The bricks may crumble, but the idea remains that humanity's tallest ambitions are often just attempts to touch the forces that feed us. Towering over the harbor of ancient Alexandria like a flaming sentinel, the lighthouse didn't just guide ships, it allegedly burned them. According to medieval Arab scholars, its crowning mirror wasn't merely reflective. It could focus sunlight into a beam intense enough to incinerate enemy vessels miles out at sea. Imagine the terror of approaching sailors, watching a pinprick of light on the horizon suddenly erupt into a blinding lance of fire. Was this ancient warfare's first death ray? Historians remain divided. Some argue the burning mirror was likely polished bronze used to signal ships, its fiery reputation exaggerated over centuries. Others point to accounts like those of al-Masudi, who described the mirror projecting flames so fierce they lit battleships ablaze in the Byzantine navy. One thing's certain, whether weapon or warning beacon, the lighthouse harnessed light itself as a tool of power, a feat that wouldn't be matched until the invention of modern lasers. Even more astounding than its mirror was its endurance. While most ancient wonders crumbled within centuries, the lighthouse stood defiant for an astonishing 1,600 years. Earthquakes in 796 and 1303 chipped away at its upper tiers, yet it remained functional into the 1400s, its stump still towering 200 feet tall. How the secret lay in its double-walled construction, with interior chambers filled with molten lead to absorb seismic shocks, an ancient form of earthquake engineering. Arab travelers like Ibn Battuta marveled at its survival, noting that even in its ruined state, the structure's base housed a mosque where pilgrims prayed, oblivious to the engineering masterpiece beneath their feet. But the sea, patient and relentless, eventually claimed its rival. By 1480, the final stones of the lighthouse had tumbled into the Mediterranean, its remains cannibalized to build the citadel of Kate Bay on the same site. Modern divers rediscovered its scattered blocks in 1994, including colossal statues of Ptolemaic kings that once adorned its facade. One granite slab weighing 75 tons still bears a Greek inscription, King Ptolemy the Savior. It's a fitting epitaph. For over a millennium, the lighthouse didn't just save ships, it saved knowledge, its light a metaphor for the intellectual brilliance of Alexandria itself. And though its mirror is lost to legend, its legacy burns on, proof that even the mightiest stone must bow to time, but ideas, those can blaze forever. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon have taunted historians for centuries, not because of their splendor, but because they might be history's most beautiful mirage. Ancient texts describe tiered terraces dripping with vines and exotic flowers, rising like a green mountain above the Mesopotamian desert. But here's the twist: no Babylonian records mention them. No archaeological traces have been found in Babylon itself. Even Herodotus, the Greek historian who waxed poetic about Babylon's walls, never noted these gardens. So why do they persist in our imagination? The answer might lie 300 miles north in the Assyrian capital of Nineveh. Recent scholarship points to Queen Sammu Rammat, the real-life inspiration for the mythical Semiramis as the garden's true patron. Assyrian inscriptions boast of her engineering feats, and Nineveh's ruins reveal an intricate aqueduct system capable of lifting water from the Kasa River to palace rooftops. Archaeologists even uncovered a peculiar bas-relief in Sennacherib's palace showing trees growing atop columns, their roots dangling in midair. Could this be the gardens misattributed to Babylon over time? The theory gains weight when you consider Nineveh's palace without rival, where Sennacherib's own writings describe high garden terraces resembling cedar mountains, irrigated by bronze screws that raised water continuously, a technology so advanced it wouldn't reappear in Europe until the Renaissance. But whether in Babylon or Nineveh, the garden's real wonder wasn't their beauty, it was their defiance of nature. Maintaining lush vegetation in a region where summer temperatures soar past 120 degrees would have required hydraulic genius. The likely solution, a chain pump system where wooden buckets mounted on loops of rope drew water from the Euphrates or Kasa to the highest terrace, allowing gravity to cascade it downward through capillary channels. Persian Qanat tunnels, underground canals that prevented evaporation, might have fed secondary reservoirs, while bitumen-lined terraces stopped water from seeping away. The gardens wouldn't just have been a display of wealth, but a ticking clock of labor. Historians estimate it would have taken 12,000 gallons daily just to keep the plants alive. Perhaps the gardens endure in legend because they represent something deeper than botany. They're a testament to humanity's obsession with bending inhospitable landscapes into submission, an idea so potent it transcended its own existence. Whether real or embellished, the Hanging Gardens whisper a challenge across millennia that even in the harshest earth we'll always try to plant paradise. Etched into Peru's bone-dry Pampa Colorado Desert, the Nazca lines stretch across nearly 200 square miles, a sprawling canvas where ancient artists scraped away dark surface stones to reveal lighter soil beneath. These aren't just random scratches, they're geometric perfection on a gargantuan scale. A 300-foot hummingbird's wings curve with biological accuracy. A 1,800-foot spiral coils with mathematical precision. A 900-foot monkey's tail curls in perfect proportionality, despite being drawn across uneven terrain invisible to its creators at ground level. This raises the first jaw-dropping question. How did the Nazca people, without hot air balloons or aerial views, design figures so flawlessly large they only make sense from thousands of feet in the air? One theory suggests they scaled down their designs using simple grids. Archaeologists have found wooden stakes and rope fragments near some lines, hinting at a system where small sketches were divided into squares, then scaled up by teams moving in coordinated units across the desert. Imagine it, hundreds of workers stretching ropes between stakes like a colossal connect-the-dots puzzle, trusting their measurements would coalesce into a hummingbird's wing or a spider's leg when seen from the heavens. But here's the catch, even with grids, a single misaligned stake would distort the entire figure at scale. The Nazca didn't just understand geometry, they mastered large-scale spatial reasoning with near superhuman accuracy. Then there's the purpose. The astronomical calendar theory gained traction in the 1970s when researchers noticed some lines aligned with solstice sunrises and lunar cycles. But not all designs fit this mold, unless the Nazca worshipped giant monkeys as celestial deities. Another hypothesis paints the lines as ritual pathways where processions followed the glyphs during ceremonies. Footwear fragments and ceramic offerings found near certain figures support this idea, but the wildest claim that these were landing strips for extraterrestrial visitors. Proponents point to the flat, hardened surfaces of some straight lines as ideal for aircraft. Never mind that the desert's soft soil would collapse under any substantial weight. The alien theory endures precisely because the lines feel inexplicable. What's often overlooked is the desert's role as co-artist. The Nazca Plateau's unique microclimate, almost no rain, winds that sweep dust but leave heavier stones untouched, created a natural blackboard where designs could endure for millennia. The artists didn't just draw, they collaborated with the environment, tapping into geological stability we'd struggle to replicate today. Modern attempts to recreate the lines using their methods fail within decades, eroded by winds or human interference. Yet the originals remain crisp as the day they were made. Perhaps the line's true genius lies in their duality. They're both grounded and ethereal, practical and mystical. A hummingbird that's also a constellation, a maze that's both a walking path and a celestial map. The Nazca didn't just leave us puzzles. They left a meditation on how humanity seeks meaning, whether in stars, gods, or the sheer joy of creating something too vast to see from Earth. Their message isn't written in the lines, but in the act of making them. That art isn't always for the artist. Sometimes it's for the sky. The Temple of Karnak isn't just a monument. It's a living chronicle carved in sandstone, where every pillar tells the story of a pharaoh's ambition. Over 1,300 years, 30 rulers left their mark here, each adding layers like growth rings in a tree. The result, a sprawling complex so vast it could hold 10 European cathedrals within its walls. At its heart rises the Great Hypostyle Hall, a forest of 134 columns so massive it would take 5 adults with outstretched arms to encircle just one. These aren't mere supports, they're stone hymns to the gods, their surfaces etched with thousands of hieroglyphs that catch the sunlight like golden whispers from the past. But Karnak's true genius lies in its chaos of creation. Unlike the precise symmetry of the pyramids, this temple grew organically, each pharaoh striving to outshine their predecessors. Ramses II stamped his name on every surface, while Hatshepsut, history's great female pharaoh, built towering obelisks so slender their tips seemed to pierce the sky. The most audacious addition, the festival hall of Thutmose III, with its tent-inspired columns mimicking the military camps of his conquests. It's as if the entire complex is in conversation with itself, each dynasty arguing across centuries in stone and pigment. Then there's the sacred lake, a mirror black rectangle where priests performed nightly purifications under the stars. This wasn't just ceremonial theater, it was celestial engineering. The lake's dimensions align with lunar cycles, its still waters reflecting the moon's path to help priests predict eclipses. Recent excavations revealed tunnels beneath it, suggesting the lake was part of a hydraulic system that may have fueled the temple's legendary sound effects. When chants echoed through the hypostyle hall, the vibrations traveled through water channels, amplifying voices into something unearthly. Imagine standing there at dusk, watching torchlight ripple across the columns as priestly hymns seemed to rise from the very earth, an immersive experience blending architecture, astronomy, and acoustics. What makes Karnak unforgettable isn't just its scale, but its humanity. Hidden amidst the grandeur are traces of the workers who built it, doodles of animals on unfinished walls, a scribe's tally of beer rations, even a builder's palm print preserved in dried mortar. These quiet moments remind us that history's loudest monuments were shaped by countless unnamed hands. The temple endures not as a static relic, but as a symphony of ambition, faith, and sweat, a testament to what happens when 30 generations dare to dream in stone. Carved into the sheer red sandstone cliffs where the Min, Dodu, and Kingi rivers violently converge, the Leshan giant Buddha rises like a serene colossus above the churning waters. At 233 feet tall, roughly the height of a 20-story building, this monumental statue wasn't created for worship alone. It was a feat of environmental engineering disguised as devotion. In the 8th century, the river's treacherous currents routinely capsized boats, drowning sailors and disrupting trade. A Buddhist monk named Haitong proposed an audacious solution: carve a Buddha so massive its presence would spiritually pacify the waters, and, in doing so, alter the very flow of the rivers themselves. The construction was a marathon of patience and precision. For 90 years, generations of artisans dangled from ropes, chiseling the cliff face into the likeness of Maitreya, the future Buddha. But this wasn't just sculpture, it was hydrological warfare. The workers strategically dumped excavated stone into the riverbeds, gradually redirecting currents away from deadly whirlpools. The Buddha's curled hair, not just an artistic choice, those 761 spirals double as gutters, channeling rainwater through an intricate internal drainage system that weaves behind the statue's ears, down its robes, and out discreet exits near the base. Without this hidden network, erosion would have crumbled the sandstone masterpiece centuries ago. Then there's the mystery of the chest chamber. Behind a long sealed door in the Buddha's torso, explorers in 1962 found something unexpected: not relics or treasure, but a crudely carved stone tablet. Its inscription, a warning from Haitong himself: the true wealth is the calmness of the waters. Some scholars believe the chamber once held river mapping scrolls or ritual objects used to bless the treacherous confluence. Others speculate it served as a symbolic heart, physically anchoring the Buddha's spiritual presence to the landscape. What's most astonishing is how the statue still shapes its environment today. The redirected currents have deposited enough silt over the centuries to permanently alter the riverbed, creating safer passages for modern ships. Even the Buddha's posture, seated with hands resting on knees, was calculated to minimize wind resistance against the cliff, reducing weather damage. This isn't just a statue, it's a dialogue between humanity and nature, where reverence and practicality merge like the rivers at its feet. The giant Buddha doesn't just watch over the waters, it continues to tame them, one silent century at a time. Beneath the fairy tale rock formations of Cappadocia lies a different kind of wonder, one that plunges into darkness instead of reaching for the sky. The Derinkuyu underground city is a labyrinthine fortress carved directly into volcanic rock, descending 18 stories deep with enough space to shelter 20,000 people. Picture a metropolis where every necessity, homes, stables, churches, even wineries, exists entirely underground, hidden from the world above. This wasn't just a refuge, it was an entire civilization turned inward, a survival strategy etched into the earth itself. The most striking feature isn't the sheer scale, it's the ingenuity of its defenses. Massive circular stone doors, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, could be rolled across passageways to seal off entire sections in an instant. These weren't mere barriers, they were engineered with precision, fitting into grooves so tight they blocked both invaders and smoke from torches. Ventilation shafts, some stretching over 170 feet to the surface, provided fresh air while remaining too narrow for attackers to navigate. Even the water wells were designed with secrecy in mind, tapped into underground rivers that couldn't be poisoned from above. Every detail whispered the same chilling truth. The people who built Derinkuyu weren't just preparing for danger, they expected annihilation. So what drove them to such extremes? The answer lies in Cappadocia's brutal history, a crossroads ravaged by waves of conquerors, Persians, Romans, Arabs, and Mongols. But the greatest threat came from the skies, Arab raids during the Byzantine era, where swift cavalry armies could descend without warning, leaving devastation in their wake. For farmers and monks alike, survival meant vanishing entirely. The underground city wasn't just a shelter, it was a psychological weapon. Invaders might torch fields or smash statues, but how do you wage war against an enemy that literally disappears into the earth? Yet Derinkuyu's true brilliance lies in its adaptability. Archaeologists found evidence of communal kitchens with vents designed to disperse smoke among multiple chambers, preventing detection from the surface. Stables were placed near the top levels, allowing animal waste to be quickly removed, a critical detail for long sieges. Perhaps most astonishing are the deep pits believed to be communication shafts, where voices could travel between levels without echoes, enabling silent coordination during attacks. This wasn't a panicked hideout, it was a masterclass in subterranean urban planning refined over centuries of necessity. What haunts modern visitors isn't the darkness, it's the echoes of resilience. In Derinkuyu's dimly lit chapels, crosses still mark the walls where families once prayed for deliverance. Grain storage rooms hint at the patience required to wait out months of danger. And those towering stone doors, they weren't just defensive tools, they were acts of faith, a belief that no matter how dire the world above became, life and hope could persist below. The city's final secret isn't how it was built, but why it was abandoned. As threats faded, generations chose sunlight over safety, leaving their underground sanctuary to the silence of history. Yet the lesson remains, sometimes survival doesn't mean standing tall, it means knowing how to become invisible. Buried in the Indus Valley, the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro isn't just the world's oldest public water tank, it's a 5,000-year-old lesson in hydraulic engineering. Imagine a pool 40 feet long and nearly 8 feet deep, its floor and walls lined with precisely fitted bricks sealed with natural bitumen, a waterproofing technique so effective that puddles still form in its base after monsoon rains today. This wasn't just craftsmanship, it was obsession. The bath's builders sandwiched layers of clay and gypsum between brick courses to prevent groundwater seepage, while surrounding verandas with carefully sloped floors channeled runoff into drainage channels. Every drop was accounted for, every surface engineered to defy the very element it contained. But the bath's brilliance extends beyond its walls. Beneath Mohenjo-Daro's dusty streets lies a sewage network that would put modern cities to shame. Every home connected to covered drains that funneled waste into brick-lined cesspits, with sedimentation tanks to filter solids before water rejoined the river. Even the bath itself had a dedicated outlet, a corbelled arch tunnel that could empty its 12,000-gallon capacity in hours. This wasn't just infrastructure, it was a philosophy, a society that viewed cleanliness not as a luxury but as sacred. What rituals unfolded here? The bath's location near what may have been a priestly quarter hints at ceremonial use, perhaps purification rites before entering a temple. Some scholars see parallels with later Hindu traditions of ritual bathing, suggesting an unbroken thread of spiritual practice spanning millennia. Others note the absence of steps into the pool, raising the possibility that worshippers descended via wooden platforms now lost to time. The truth may lie in the bath's most haunting feature, its stillness. Unlike Roman baths bubbled by aqueducts or Egyptian pools fed by the Nile, this tank was filled manually, bucket by bucket. Each immersion would have been a deliberate act, a pause in the rhythm of the city, less about washing the body than cleansing the soul. Yet the bath's greatest mystery isn't its purpose, but its abandonment. By 1800 BC, Mohenjo-Daro's streets were empty, its drains silent. Climate shifts, invasion, no one knows, but the bath endures, a silent witness to a civilization that mastered water not just as a resource, but as a bridge between earth and heaven. Its legacy isn't in the bitumen or bricks, but in the radical idea it represents, that a society's greatness can be measured not by its monuments, but by its sewers. Rising like a stone dagger from the jungles of Sri Lanka, Sigiriya isn't just a fortress, it's an act of royal desperation frozen in rock. Picture King Kassiapa in the 5th century, a monarch who seized power by allegedly entombing his own father alive, now fleeing retribution by building a palace atop a 660-foot granite column. This wasn't just a stronghold, it was a king's bid for redemption, carved into the very bones of the earth. The climb begins at the Lion's Gate, where once mighty paws the size of elephants flanked a staircase emerging from the beast's throat. Today, only the claws remain, but they hint at the psychological warfare Kassiapa waged. Any invader ascending those steps would literally walk into the jaws of a predator. Halfway up the rock, the mirror wall still glimmers faintly beneath centuries of graffiti. Originally polished so meticulously that the king could see his reflection as he passed, this ceramic-coated surface became a visitor's guestbook over the ages. Over 1,000 inscriptions, some dating back to the 6th century, scribbled poetry about the frescoes above. 21 bare-breasted maidens painted in ochre and green floating amid clouds. Were they Kassiapa's concubines, celestial nymphs? The debate rages, but one detail chills the blood. These murals exist only on the western face, shaded from monsoon rains. Even in art, the king calculated survival, yet the real marvel lies below. Sigiriya's water gardens are a hydraulic symphony, with underground channels feeding fountains that still dance during rainy seasons. The gardens employ a gravity-fed system so precise that twin pools on either side of a pathway remain perfectly level despite the uneven terrain, but the piece de resistance. The moat's serpentine design, which isn't just decorative, it slows water flow to filter debris naturally, a 5-century-old purification system. These weren't just pretty ponds, they were a liquid manifesto proclaiming Kassiapa's mastery over nature itself. What makes Sigiriya unforgettable isn't its height, but its hubris. Every brick whispers of a king who dared to build heaven on earth, then watched as history proved him mortal. After just 18 years atop his stone throne, Kassiapa's brother returned with an army. Legend says the king, facing defeat, drew his sword and swallowed poison mid-battle, a final act of control. Today, the wind whistles through empty halls where pavilions once perched impossibly on cliff edges. The mirrors no longer reflect kings, only the ghosts of their ambitions. Sigiriya stands as both warning and wonder that even the mightiest fortresses can't shield us from ourselves. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus didn't just scrape the sky, it gleamed like a mirage. its 127 marble columns, each a gift from a different king, each polished to mirror like perfection. This wasn't just a shrine to a goddess, it was a diplomatic masterpiece, a physical ledger of alliances carved in stone. Imagine the awe of pilgrims arriving by ship, watching the sun ignite those columns as they approached, the entire structure appearing to float above the marshy plains. The temple's scale defied logic. 4 times larger than the Parthenon, its central courtyard could have swallowed a football field whole. But its true genius lay in its liquidity. Built on unstable wetlands, engineers laid foundations of charcoal-packed sheepskins and crushed marble, creating a grid that flexed like a raft during earthquakes. Even the columns weren't static. They rested on metal-strapped bases that allowed subtle movement, a seismic innovation lost for centuries after the temple's fall. Then came the fire. In 356 BCE, a man named Herostratus torched the temple's cedar roof, not for gold or ideology, but for the oldest poison of all, fame. The flames leapt so high, legend claims they competed with the birth pangs of Alexander the Great that same night. But here's the twist: the temple's destruction became part of its mythos. When Alexander later offered to fund its reconstruction, the Ephesians famously declined, saying one god shouldn't build a temple to another. They rebuilt it themselves, this time elevating the platform by 7 feet and adding a hidden network of drainage tunnels to protect against future arson. The new Artemisium became a fortress of faith, its statues weeping amber tears during crises and its altar said to be immune to birds. No droppings ever stained its sanctity. Yet the temple's resilience couldn't outlast human nature. Goths sacked it in the 3rd century CE, Christians dismantled it for materials, and by the Middle Ages even its location was forgotten. The great wonder that had hosted Amazon's dance rituals and Croesus treasures sank into the swamp that once buoyed it. Modern digs reveal heartbreaking fragments: a column drum repurposed in a Byzantine church, a carved Amazon's torso shipped to the British Museum. But perhaps the most haunting discovery was a single ivory nail from the cult statue Sandal, preserved in the anaerobic mud, a whisper of the Colossus that once stared down from her celestial throne. What lingers isn't just the loss, but the lesson. The Temple of Artemis fell 4 times: to flame, to raid, to neglect, and finally to memory, yet each rebirth refined its design. Its builders understood what we often forget, that greatness isn't measured by permanence but by the courage to rebuild. The columns may be gone, but their shadows still stretch across history, reminding us that even gods need mortal hands to keep their houses standing. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus wasn't just a tomb, it was a stone epic, a war story carved in marble. Commissioned by Queen Artemisia for her husband Mausolus in the 4th century BC, this towering monument fused Greek elegance with Near Eastern grandeur, its 4-tiered design reaching 140 feet into the sky. But what set it apart weren't just its dimensions, it was the battles frozen forever on its friezes. Imagine relief sculptures so vivid, the clashing Greeks and Amazons seemed to leap from the stone, their spears and shields locked in eternal combat. These weren't mere decorations, they were propaganda in 3 dimensions, declaring the Carian dynasty's military prowess to any rival who dared approach. The most chilling panel, a scene of Artemisia herself disguised as a man leading her fleet to victory, a feminist power play centuries ahead of its time. Then came the earthquakes. Over centuries, tremors rattled the mausoleum's foundations, toppling its crowning chariot statue and scattering marble lions and fallen warriors across Halicarnassus. By the 12th century, all that remained were broken columns and the faint outline of the tomb's footprint, until an even greater irony unfolded. Crusaders marching through to reclaim the Holy Land stumbled upon the ruins and saw not a masterpiece but a quarry. They hauled away its polished stones to fortify Bodrum Castle, embedding chunks of sculpted Amazons and gods into the walls of their stronghold. Today, you can still spot fragments of Artemisia's tribute to love repurposed as cold, pragmatic defense. Yet destiny had one last twist in store. In the 19th century, archaeologists excavating the castle discovered something astonishing. The Crusaders had unknowingly preserved the mausoleum's art by sealing it within their walls. Among the recovered treasures was a 7-foot-tall statue thought to be Mausolus himself, his stern gaze still commanding respect after 2 millennia. Even more poignant, a slab showing Artemisia, her face worn but determined, eternally cradling a model of the tomb she built to immortalize her husband, only to be buried beside him within its walls. What lingers isn't just the irony of warriors recycling a monument to love, but the resilience of memory. The mausoleum's name became synonymous with grand tombs, yet its true legacy lies in the fragments that refuse to be forgotten. A lion's paw here, a chariot wheel there, whispers of a queen's devotion that outlasted empires, earthquakes, and even the hands that tried to erase them. The stones of Halicarnassus remind us that destruction can scatter, but never truly silence the stories we carve into the world. At the heart of Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, the Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek doesn't just challenge our understanding of Roman engineering, it outright defies it. The star of the show, the trilithon, 3 monstrous limestone blocks, each weighing nearly 1,000 tons, stacked with such precision that a razor blade can't slip between them. To put that in perspective, each stone equals the weight of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jets. These aren't just building blocks, they're declarations of power carved in stone, so colossal that even modern cranes would struggle to lift them. How did the Romans, masters though they were, move these behemoths? The site's ramps and cranes, impressive for typical Roman projects, seem laughably inadequate here. Some theorists point to a mysterious walking machine, described in ancient texts, a contraption of wooden frames and levers that could inch stones forward like a mechanical centipede. Others speculate about lost Roman concrete formulas that might have temporarily softened stone for shaping, but the wildest hypothesis that the Romans inherited the trilithon's base layer from an earlier, forgotten civilization. The stone's deep weathering patterns and lack of Roman tool marks suggest they might have sat exposed for centuries before the Romans arrived, repurposing them like builders salvaging an ancient foundation. Then there's the quarry half a mile away, where an even larger stone, the famed Stone of the Pregnant Woman, lies abandoned. At 1,650 tons, it's the largest cut stone in human history, partially freed from bedrock but never moved. Chisel marks suggest workers stopped mid-task, as if whatever technology they'd relied on suddenly failed. Nearby, another megalith sports peculiar grooves that look suspiciously like tracks. Could these hint at a system of rollers or sledges that simply couldn't scale up for the biggest stones? The temple's alignment deepens the mystery. Its foundation stones mirror constellations visible during the winter solstice, a trait shared with pre-Roman sites like Stonehenge. Even the local name, Baalbek, echoes the Canaanite god Baal, hinting at a sacred site repurposed by conquerors. Did the Romans build upon a holy mountain already shaped by hands we've yet to name? What makes Baalbek unforgettable isn't just the stones, but the questions they hurl across time. The Romans left meticulous records of their aqueducts and roads, yet this, their most staggering feat, goes curiously unmentioned. Perhaps the truth lies not in texts, but in the stones themselves, their sheer weight pressing down on history, daring us to reconsider what ancient hands were truly capable of. Rising from the savannah like a mirage of stone, the Great Zimbabwe ruins stand as one of Africa's most enigmatic masterpieces. A city built without mortar, without written records, and without borrowing a single architectural idea from the outside world. At its heart looms the Great Enclosure, a towering elliptical wall 30 feet high and 16 feet thick, constructed from over 1 million granite blocks stacked so precisely that even after 7 centuries, a knife blade can't slip between them. The technique, a method called dry stonewalling, where artisans shaped each boulder to interlock with its neighbors through sheer physics, using nothing but friction and gravity. But here's the twist: the stones weren't quarried. Builders harvested them from naturally fractured granite outcrops, selecting rocks that already bore flat edges, then painstakingly dressed them with iron chisels to perfect the fit. This wasn't just construction, it was a dialogue between human ingenuity and the landscape itself. Now, step inside the great enclosure where a 33-foot conical tower leans slightly inward, its purpose still hotly debated. Some argue it was a grain silo, symbolizing prosperity in a kingdom that thrived on gold trade. Others see it as an astronomical marker, aligning with celestial events to guide rituals. But the most tantalizing clue lies in the soapstone birds perched atop monoliths, 8 avian sculptures with human lips and crocodile features, blending earthly and spiritual realms. These weren't just decorations, they were emblems of royal authority, possibly tied to the ancestors who watched over the city. Then there's the legend of King Solomon's mines. When Portuguese explorers first encountered the ruins in the 16th century, they couldn't believe Africans had built them. Instead, they spun tales linking the site to the biblical king's legendary gold mines, ignoring the obvious truth. Great Zimbabwe was the heart of a Shona kingdom that dominated gold trade between the interior and Swahili coast. Arab traders' records confirm it. This was Sofala, a city so rich its rulers wore cloth woven with golden threads and bartered gold dust for Chinese porcelain and Persian glass. But the ruins' true scandal erupted in the colonial era. White settlers, unwilling to credit black Africans with such sophistication, insisted Phoenicians or Arabs must have been the real builders. Archaeologists like Gertrude Catton Thompson, who proved the site's indigenous origins in 1929, faced furious backlash. Even Rhodesia's apartheid government printed propaganda claiming the ruins were non-African. Today, modern archaeology has silenced these racist myths, tracing pottery shards, iron tools, and even old grain bins directly to Shona craftsmanship. What makes Great Zimbabwe unforgettable isn't just its stones, but the stories they refuse to let others erase. This was a city built to breathe, its walls designed with vents to channel the savanna winds, its dwellings arranged to catch the sunrise over sacred hills. The ruins don't just whisper of kings and gold. They speak of a civilization that saw no division between architecture and nature, between power and belonging. And in their silent defiance, they pose a question we're still grappling with. When we look at the past, are we seeing history or just our own reflections? Hidden deep within the basalt cliffs of India's Sahyadri Mountains, the Ajanta caves are a symphony of devotion carved in stone. Imagine monks with nothing but chisels and iron picks, patiently hollowing out 31 sacred spaces over 8 centuries, each chamber a prayer made physical. What's staggering isn't just the scale, but the precision. These aren't rough grottos, they're architectural marvels with vaulted ceilings, ornate pillars, and even acoustics designed to amplify chanting. The monks didn't just remove rock, they sculpted negative space into something holy, leaving behind not walls, but absences shaped like prayer halls, stupas, and sleeping cells. And all of it, every chisel stroke, was guided by torchlight in near-total darkness. But the true revelation lies in the paint. While most ancient frescoes fade under sunlight, Ajanta's murals survived in pristine condition precisely because they were forgotten. Layers of mineral-rich pigments, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, cinnabar from the Himalayas, glow as vibrantly today as they did in the 5th century. One scene from the Mahajanoka Jataka tale shows a prince renouncing his throne, his face a masterclass in emotion, with shading so delicate it rivals Renaissance portraiture. Another panel captures a herd of elephants bathing, their wrinkled skin and splashing water rendered with such movement, you can almost hear the trumpeting. These weren't mere decorations, they were visual scriptures teaching Buddhist parables to illiterate devotees through color and form. The cave's accidental rediscovery in 1819 reads like an adventure novel. A British cavalry officer named John Smith, no relation to the famed captain, was tiger hunting when he spotted a horseshoe-shaped arch above the Waghora River. Scaling the cliffs with his troops, he stumbled into Cave 10, his torch illuminating a towering Buddha flanked by celestial nymphs. His graffiti, John Smith, 28 April 1819, still scars a bodhisattva's leg, a bittersweet reminder of colonialism's double edge. The same empire that looted India also preserved its hidden treasures. What's haunting is the abandonment. By the 7th century, the monks vanished, leaving behind half-finished caves with chisel marks frozen mid-stroke. Some scholars blame drought, others point to shifting trade routes, but perhaps the most poignant clue lies in Cave 26, where a sculptor's grid lines still mark the wall, a blueprint for a Buddha statue that was never born. The caves stand as both triumph and testament to the patience of faith, the fragility of memory, and the uncanny way beauty endures precisely where the light doesn't reach. In the heart of Beijing, where the modern skyline fades into history, the Temple of Heaven rises as a Ming Dynasty masterpiece built not for mortal worship but for celestial conversation. This sprawling complex, where emperors once performed sacred harvest rituals, is an architectural riddle wrapped in symbolism, every curve and corner whispering secrets of the cosmos. The Hall of Prayer for Good Harvest stands as its crown jewel, a triple-tiered circular pavilion with a roof of deep blue tiles representing the heavens themselves. But this isn't just poetry in wood and glaze, it's precision engineering. The entire structure was built without a single nail, relying instead on intricate interlocking brackets that flex with earthquakes but never fracture. Even more astonishing, the hall's diameter mirrors the number of days in the agricultural year, while its 12 inner pillars symbolize the lunar months, a calendar carved in cedar. Step onto the echo wall and physics bends to ancient wisdom. This smooth, circular enclosure has a peculiar property. Whisper a secret against its surface, and the sound will race along the curvature, reaching someone 100 feet away with eerie clarity. The effect isn't accidental. Builders calculated the wall's curvature to refract sound waves like light through a prism, turning stone into a whispering gallery fit for the gods. Nearby, the 3 echo stones amplify footsteps into triplicate echoes, one for earth, one for heaven, and one for the emperor, who stood here to prove his divine mandate resonated across all realms. The true magic, though, unfolded every winter solstice. Before dawn, the Son of Heaven would begin a solemn procession along the sacred way, fasting for 3 days to purify his spirit. At the circular mound altar, an open-air platform of marble tiers, he'd perform the most critical ritual of the year, reporting the empire's achievements to the celestial bureaucracy. The altar's design was no accident. Its 9 concentric rings, each paved with stones in multiples of 9, the heavenly number, formed a cosmic amplifier. When the emperor spoke, his voice would bounce off the balustrades, layering echoes until his words seemed to rise unaided into the sky, a theatrical illusion convincing all present that heaven itself was listening. Yet the Temple of Heaven's genius wasn't just in grand gestures. Even the bricks of the imperial vault of heaven were baked with a special clay mixed with tung oil and glutinous rice, creating a surface so smooth that rain cleansed it like a self-renewing canvas. The surrounding cypress forest was planted in precise grids to filter dust from ritual air while discouraging birds, their droppings considered impure interruptions. Every detail, from the alignment of staircases with pole stars to the thermal properties of the bricks, warm in winter, cool in summer, served a singular purpose: to make the invisible tangible, to turn cosmology into something you could walk through, touch, and hear. What lingers isn't just the architectural brilliance, but the humility encoded in its curves. Unlike pyramids or ziggurats that scratch at the sky, the Temple of Heaven bows to it. The circular shapes repeating throughout the complex speak of cycles of harvests, of dynasties, of seasons returning without fail. Even the color palette whispers reverence: blue for heaven, green for earth, gold for the emperor who bridged them. This wasn't a monument to human glory. It was a stage for acknowledging how small we stand beneath the constellations. And perhaps that's the most revolutionary idea of all, that true power lies not in defying the cosmos, but in harmonizing with its rhythms. High above the jungle canopy, the Palenque Observatory doesn't look like a telescope. It's a stone tower crowned with a narrow, vaulted chamber. But step inside at dawn on the right day, and the architecture transforms into a celestial timepiece. The east-facing window aligns perfectly with the rising sun on the winter solstice, casting a dagger of light across the chamber's back wall. Another slit in the west wall frames Venus at its most brilliant evening appearance, a sight so precise it allowed Mayan astronomers to track the planet's 584-day cycle with an error margin of just 2 hours over 500 years. This wasn't just observation, it was mathematics etched in stone, a fusion of architecture and astronomy that turned walls into a living calendar. The real magic lies in the calculations hidden in plain sight. Mayan scribes recorded Venus movements in codices like the Dresden Codex, where tables predict its phases centuries into the future, but at Palenque they went further. The observatory's staircase has exactly 91 steps. Divide the solar year's 365 days by 4, and you get 91.25. Each step represents a single day in one of the 4 seasons, with the platform at the top accounting for the extra quarter day. It's a 3-dimensional almanac, ensuring priests could mark solstices and equinoxes simply by walking its length. Then there's the enigma of Lord Pachel's sarcophagus, buried deep beneath the temple of the inscriptions. Its intricately carved lid shows the king reborn as the maize god, surrounded by a cosmic framework that mirrors the observatory's alignments. The most debated detail, a stylized tree of life that some researchers argue represents the Milky Way, while others see it as a celestial rocket fueling wild theories about ancient astronauts. The truth is likely even more fascinating. Pachel's pose matches the position of Venus at zenith, his body forming a human echo of the planet's path across the heavens. What makes Palenque revolutionary isn't just its precision, but its philosophy. Unlike Western astronomy, which sought to conquer the stars, the Maya saw themselves as partners in a cosmic dance. When their observatory's windows framed Venus, it wasn't merely to predict its movements, it was to sync royal coronations, wars, and harvests with celestial rhythms. The stones whisper a lesson modern science is only relearning, that the universe isn't just a clock to be dissected, but a conversation to be joined. And at Palenque, the walls still hold every word. Descending into Malta's hypogeum of Hal Saflieni feels less like entering a tomb and more like stepping inside a giant stone instrument. This labyrinth of underground chambers, carved 5,000 years ago with nothing more than flint and obsidian tools, isn't just a burial site, it's an acoustic marvel. The walls curve in precise, undulating patterns, not by accident but by design. When voices chant or drums echo through the corridors, certain frequencies amplify into haunting resonance, while others vanish as if swallowed by the rock itself. The most chilling example, the so-called oracle room, where a deep male voice speaking at specific pitches can make the entire chamber vibrate, sending sound waves pulsing through the body. Archaeologists discovered that the room's niche is tuned to 110 Hz, a frequency known to alter brain activity, inducing trance-like states in modern studies. Were these tunnels designed as a gateway between worlds where sound became the key to communing with the dead? The hypogeum's construction only deepens the mystery. Over 3 levels descend like inverted pyramids, with the lowest chambers mimicking the above-ground temples of Malta's megalithic culture. Ceilings are painted with ochre spirals reminiscent of celestial bodies, while false doors carved into the walls suggest symbolic passageways for spirits. But here's what defies explanation. Some niches amplify whispers delivered from 30 feet away, while others distort sound into eerie, unintelligible echoes. This isn't random acoustics, it's sonic engineering on a Neolithic scale. Researchers from the University of Malta found that the hypogeum's creators deliberately shaped chambers to create standing waves, using concave walls and funnel-shaped passages to manipulate sound in ways that wouldn't be understood scientifically until the 20th century. Then there's the bone cult. The hypogeum held the remains of over 7,000 individuals, their skulls often arranged in niches or placed in carved stone bowls. Some showed signs of deliberate deformation, elongating the cranium in rituals that might have enhanced auditory perception. Even more unsettling, the discovery of a figurine known as the Sleeping Lady, curled in eternal repose, a possible representation of the trance state induced by the oracle room's vibrations. Modern experiments have shown that prolonged exposure to 110 Hz frequencies can trigger visions and out-of-body sensations, raising the spine-tingling possibility that the hypogeum wasn't just a tomb but a machine for transcendence. What lingers isn't just the how, but the why. Unlike Egypt's pyramids or Rome's catacombs, the hypogeum lacks inscriptions or obvious iconography. Its builders left no written language, only these echoing chambers as their manifesto. Perhaps the answer lies in the walls themselves, not in what they say, but in how they sing. When you stand in the oracle room and feel your own voice shake the stone, you're not just hearing sound. You're hearing 5 millennia of whispered secrets, vibrations that refuse to fade, and a question that still hums in the dark. Were these corridors meant for the dead or for the living who sought to hear them speak? Rising from the desert cliffs of Deir el-Bahari, the Temple of Hatshepsut doesn't just defy expectations, it shatters them. Designed by the royal architect Senenmut, this terraced masterpiece cascades down the rocky face like a staircase for the gods, its 3 colonnaded levels blending so seamlessly with the cliffs behind it that the structure appears to have been carved by the wind itself. But what makes this temple revolutionary isn't just its harmony with the landscape, it's the audacity behind its existence. Hatshepsut, Egypt's second female pharaoh, didn't just inherit her throne, she seized it in a society where kingship was intrinsically male. And this temple, with its clean lines and open courtyards, was her stone manifesto, a declaration that her rule was not just legitimate but divine. The walls once told a story as bold as the architecture itself. Vivid reliefs depicted Hatshepsut's divine birth myth, showing the god Ammon taking the form of her father Thutmose I to conceive her, literally rewriting history to prove her heavenly right to rule. Scenes of her monumental trading expedition to Punt, a land of fragrant myrrh trees and exotic animals, flanked the processional ramps, immortalizing her as a ruler of prosperity and exploration. But these weren't just decorations, they were propaganda in pigment and stone. After her death, her stepson Thutmose III systematically erased her image from these walls, chiseling away her face and titles in an act of damnatio memoriae. The irony, the very violence of these erasures preserved the outlines of the original carvings, allowing modern lasers to reconstruct the vibrant scenes Thutmose tried to destroy. Then there's the enigma of Senenmut, the genius behind the temple's design. A commoner who rose to become Hatshepsut's closest advisor, his unprecedented access to the queen sparked rumors of a forbidden romance. Over 25 hidden depictions of him appear throughout the temple, including one startling graffito in a secluded shrine where he kneels in prayer behind a door hinge, visible only when the door is swung open. But his fate remains one of Egypt's great mysteries. After Hatshepsut's death, Senenmut vanishes from records. Was he murdered? Did he flee? His tomb, meticulously prepared near the temple, was never used. The only clue lies in a vandalized statue of him holding Hatshepsut's daughter, their faces smashed beyond recognition, as if someone sought to erase not just a man, but an entire legacy of collaboration. The temple's architecture whispers secrets modern engineers still struggle to decode. The central ramp aligns precisely with the winter solstice sunrise, illuminating the innermost sanctuary where Hatshepsut's statue once stood. The terraces mirror the layers of the Egyptian cosmos, the mortal world at the base, the transitional realm in the middle, and the divine at the summit. Even the choice of location was a masterstroke. Built opposite Karnak Temple across the Nile, it created a sacred axis linking her reign to Ammon's heartland. But perhaps the most haunting detail is the temple's echo. Stand at the base of the upper terrace and whisper, and the sound bounces off the cliffs with unnatural clarity, a phenomenon the ancients might have interpreted as the gods whispering back. What makes Hatshepsut's temple unforgettable isn't just its grandeur, but its resilience. The stones remember what history tried to forget. Behind every erased cartouche, every defaced relief, lies the shadow of a queen who dared to build her eternity in a world determined to unmake it. And in the quiet of the colonnades, where desert winds hum through the pillars, you can almost hear the echo of Senon Chisel, a collaborator who turned a cliff face into a crown. High in Peru's sacred valley, the fortress of Ollantaytambo perches like a sentinel carved from the mountains themselves, its most mind-bending feature. Massive pink granite blocks, some weighing 50 tons or more, hold up steep slopes and fitted together with seams so tight, not even a blade of grass can wedge between them. The quarry where these stones originated lies across the valley, 6 kilometers away and nearly 1,000 feet lower in elevation. How did the Inca, without wheels or draft animals, achieve this feat? The answer lies in a combination of ingenuity and sheer human will. Workers likely dragged the blocks on wooden sledges along earthen ramps, using logs as rollers, a technique still visible in grooves worn into ancient pathways. But here's the twist. During seasonal rains, they may have turned the ramps into mudslides, lubricating the stone's path with water to reduce friction. Some researchers even suggest they built temporary canals, floating the blocks downhill on diverted rivers, a theory supported by Inca expertise in hydraulic engineering. Once in place, the stones became puzzles in 3 dimensions. The Inca didn't just stack them, they shaped each block with concave recesses on the bottom that interlocked with convex knobs on the one beneath, like a stone Lego system. This wasn't just for stability, it was earthquake-proofing on a grand scale. When tremors struck, the stones would sway and settle back into place, their undulating joints absorbing the shock. Modern engineers call this ashlar masonry, but the Inca perfected it centuries before seismic science existed. The fortress's terrace design also played a role, acting like a giant staircase that dispersed seismic energy horizontally rather than letting it travel upward. Yet Ollantaytambo's greatest mystery isn't how it was built, but why. The fortress was never completed, its megalithic walls abruptly stopping as if frozen mid-construction. Some believe it was a royal estate for Emperor Pachacuti, while others argue it was a ceremonial center aligned with solstice sunrises, the most compelling clue. A row of 6 monolithic slabs known as the Tired Stones, abandoned along the transport route. Their sheer size, each nearly 30 feet tall, suggests the Inca were attempting something even more ambitious before abandoning the project. Were they fleeing Spanish conquest, or did some deeper shift in spiritual or political priorities redirect their efforts? What makes Ollantaytambo unforgettable isn't just the stones, but the stories they refuse to tell. Unlike Egyptian pyramids or Roman temples, there are no inscriptions, no carvings, just raw, unspoken intent. The fortress stands as both triumph and riddle, a monument to what happens when human ambition meets the limits of its time. And in its unfinished state, it whispers a tantalizing question. If this is what they left behind, what might they have achieved if history had granted them just a little more? Deep in Rajasthan's arid landscape, where temperatures scorch past 110 degrees, the Chand Bayori stepwell doesn't just defy the desert, it outsmarts it. Descending 13 stories into the earth, this 4-sided staircase of 3,500 perfectly symmetrical steps isn't merely a water source, it's a masterclass in thermodynamics. Each tier narrows as it plunges downward, creating a microclimate where air cools as it sinks, dropping the temperature by 20 degrees at the water's surface. The steps themselves act as a heat sink, their rugged stone absorbing sunlight during the day and releasing it slowly at night, regulating the well's environment like a colossal subterranean lung. But the real stroke of genius, the staggered design. By zigzagging the staircases instead of aligning them, builders maximized shade coverage, ensuring every inch of the structure contributed to cooling. This wasn't just architecture, it was climate control carved in sandstone. Beyond its engineering, Chan Bayori thrived as the heart of communal life. Farmers gathered on its shaded landings to trade monsoon forecasts, while women balancing water pots transformed the steps into a cascading tapestry of movement and chatter. The well's four-faced symmetry wasn't just aesthetic, it orchestrated social order. Each side served a distinct purpose, one for water collection, another for rituals, a third for rest, and the fourth reserved for royals who watched from the pillared pavilion at its base. This pavilion, adorned with intricate carvings of deities and dancers, doubled as a celestial observatory. During summer solstices, sunlight pierced its arched windows to illuminate a niche holding a statue of Harshat Mata, goddess of joy and light, a reminder that even in the depths divinity could be found. Rituals here blurred the line between practicality and spirituality. Villagers believed the well's deepest waters held healing properties, and during droughts, priests conducted elaborate ceremonies where offerings, coconuts, turmeric, even silver coins, were tossed into the abyss to coax the rain. The steps' hypnotic pattern played its part too. Their precise repetition was said to induce meditative states, turning the act of descending into a walking prayer. Modern acoustic studies confirm the design's eerie side effect. Whispers at the top rippled downward with unnatural clarity, as if the well itself amplifies devotion. Yet Chan Bayori's most haunting feature is its emptiness. Unlike ornate stepwells adorned with sculptures, its walls are strikingly bare, just raw, repeating geometry stretching into darkness. Some scholars interpret this austerity as a deliberate choice, forcing visitors to focus on the act of descent itself, a metaphor for life's journey. Others speculate the missing carvings were looted or never completed, but perhaps the silence is the point. In a land where water is both scarcity and salvation, the well's unadorned walls whisper a truth more profound than any decoration. Survival, in the end, is the most sacred art of all. Cutting into the limestone cliffs along the Yi River like a sacred calligraphy, the Longmen grottos are a testament to patience and power etched in stone. Over 4 centuries, from the 5th to the 9th century, emperors, monks, and artisans transformed this mile-long stretch of rock into a spiritual encyclopedia. 100,000 Buddhist statues, from delicate inch-tall carvings to the towering 57-foot Vairocana Buddha, whose serene smile seems to transcend the very rock that holds it. But these weren't just acts of devotion, they were political statements carved in limestone. The Vairocana's face, for instance, was modeled after Empress Wu Zetian, the only woman to rule China in her own name. By aligning her likeness with the cosmic Buddha, she wove her authority into the fabric of the universe itself, turning piety into propaganda with every chisel strike. The grottos reveal a fascinating hierarchy of belief and status. Wealthy patrons commissioned lavish niches adorned with peonies and celestial musicians, while humbler devotees pooled resources for smaller, simpler figures. Some caves even functioned as family shrines, with generations adding statues over decades like a stone family tree. But the most intriguing details lie in the stylistic shifts across the centuries. Early Northern Moai dynasty carvings show slender, ethereal figures with flowing robes influenced by Indian Gandhara art. By the Tang dynasty, the statues grow voluptuous and lifelike, their folds of flesh and draped silk radiating a newfound confidence mirroring China's golden age under Tang rule. These weren't just artistic trends, they were visual echoes of an empire's evolving identity. Then comes the heartbreak. The 20th century ravaged longmen in ways no dynasty ever could. In the 1930s, collectors and looters armed with chisels and saws hacked away entire sections of sculptures to sell abroad. The guardian of the Lotus Cave lost her head to a Chicago art dealer. The flying apsaras in the Bignone Cave were scooped out and shipped to Paris. Even today, museums from New York to Tokyo display longmen's severed fragments, their origins often obscured by layers of shady provenance, the most devastating loss. The Bignone Central Altar's procession reliefs, masterpieces of Tang narrative art, were sawn apart and dispersed across 3 continents, their storytelling fractured forever. Yet amid the scars, resilience whispers. Some caves survived intact, their paint still clinging stubbornly to the stone after 1,500 years of humidity and war. In the secluded Fengxian temple, the Vairocana Buddha still gazes down, one hand raised in reassurance, as if to remind visitors that destruction is just another chapter, not the end of the story. And perhaps that's the grotto's silent lesson, that faith, like limestone, endures even when the world tries to carve it away, one fragile, magnificent inch at a time. From the Great Pyramid's celestial precision to Petra's hydraulic alchemy, these 35 ancient wonders are more than just stone and mortar. They're a testament to humanity's relentless curiosity and boundless creativity. Each civilization, whether carving temples into cliffs or floating megaliths on water, solved impossible problems with tools we'd consider primitive today. Yet the lingering question isn't just how they built these marvels, but why. What shared impulses drove cultures separated by oceans and centuries to reach for the sky, mirror the stars, or commune with the divine through architecture? Were they tapping into lost technologies we've yet to rediscover, or was their genius simply a different way of seeing the world, one where physics and faith weren't opposing forces but partners? Consider the eerie similarities between distant sites, the golden ratio encoded in both the Parthenon and the Pyramid of the Sun, or solstice alignments linking Stonehenge to Machu Picchu. Could these be evidence of forgotten global connections, or does it reflect something deeper, a universal human instinct to find patterns in the cosmos? The truth might lie in the gaps, the unanswered riddles of the hypogeum's acoustic sorcery, the uncharted tunnels beneath the great Zimbabwe ruins, the untranslated Rongorongo glyphs of Easter Island. These silent monuments challenge us to reconsider what we label primitive, reminding us that innovation isn't always about advancement. Sometimes it's about adaptation, about listening to the land and the heavens with a humility we've often lost. Now we turn to you. Which of these wonders left you breathless? Was it the Colosseum's hydraulic spectacles, or the terracotta army's silent defiance of time? Perhaps the rice-mortared Great Wall or the cliff-defying Leshan Buddha? Share your thoughts below. We're as fascinated by your perspectives as we are by these ancient triumphs. And if you're hungry for more, dive into the curated sources we've linked, where archaeologists and historians continue piecing together humanity's greatest hits in stone. Remember, these monuments weren't built to be solved like puzzles, but to inspire awe across millennia, and in that, their builders succeeded beyond measure.